Today, I am pumped because I got an absolute legend. He's been in the hospitality space for over 25 years. He owns hotels, a mix of boutique hotels, flag hotels. So I'm really excited to introduce Neil Shah. What do you think has been like the biggest pros and cons independent for the soft brand and the flag?
Three options, right? Will this hotel perform best while being independent, soft brand, or fully branded? If the hotel is located in a city like Phoenix, downtown area, definitely first consider branded property because you are now competing against a lot of other branded hotels. You need that support in order to be successful in that type of location.
So what are maybe some things that you see newer hotel owners overlook or struggle with as far as operations wise or acquisitions wise in the beginning?
The thing that I want people to think about is this is not an expansion from whatever 2 or 3 Airbnbs to 20, 30, 40 room hotel. It is a full-fledged business. It requires strategic approach. You have to run it as a business, right? It's not an Airbnb anymore.
What are some characteristics that you really look out for or that shine in people say that have like no experience or anything like that you really look for in order to be able to partner with them?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to introduce Neil Shah. So Neil, welcome to the show. It's truly an honor to have you on.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and talk hotels with you and your audience.
Let's do it. So Neil, big picture really quick. What does your portfolio currently look like? And like, what's the mix of flag hotels versus boutique hotels?
Yeah, so we have 6 hotels in Sedona. Out of 6, we have 2 2 soft brands, one fully branded property, and then the rest of the 3 are independent hotels. We have 2 hotels in Tucson. Both of them are branded, and we have 2 in California. They're both independents. So it's a
Got
pretty
it.
good
Okay.
mix of branded, soft brands, and independents. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people don't know what that is, I mean, even for me, it can get a little confusing. What is the differences between soft branded, flag branded, independent, all that stuff?
Sure. So I think we all know what independent is. Basically, no brand affiliation. You run it the way you want. You are in full control. So that's that. Soft brand is the next tier, which is where you don't put a sign of a brand on a building or in front of the hotel, like Marriott or Comfort Inn or Hampton Inn or whatever that may be. It basically just a plaque at the entry of your lobby, but you are associated with the brand where they put you on all the distribution channels, right? And then they also give you much fewer standards slash guidelines for you as a hotel to follow to meet their brand requirements. And because of lower support, lower requirements, their fees are lower, right? So soft brand, I would say, is a really good middle ground for hotels that are located in high demand leisure area where the demands are higher, and then you are not depending heavily on corporate travelers. And then the next one is fully branded hotels where, as we talked about, Comfort Suites, Hamptons, Marriott's, where they give you pretty much playbook in a sense, like this is how your room should look like, this is the furniture you buy, your breakfast should have exactly so many number of items, the hours are based on their standards, your service levels, your operating guidelines, and because of, well, of course, they also put you on the distribution channels. They connect you with all the GDS channels, OTAs, group bookings, and things like that. So it's a lot more involved from the brand's point of view. And for that reason, the fees are higher and the standards are higher. So you have to follow basically a lot of guidelines while you are fully branded.
Got it. So I imagine there's many pros and cons to each of the differences. And so what do you think has been like the biggest pros and cons? I mean, maybe just for the independent, for the soft brand and the flag.
So the way I look at it is I try to match the hotel with 3 options, right? Will this hotel perform best while being independent, soft brand, or fully branded? If the hotel is located in a city like Phoenix, downtown area, I would definitely first consider branded property, because you are now competing against a lot of other branded hotels, a lot of corporate business, government travelers. So in order to be in front of their eyes, you need to be associated with a full brand where they have the whole network, distribution channels, digital channels, brand recognition. You need that support in order to be successful in that type of location, right? If the property is located in market like Sedona, which is very heavy leisure market, where people mostly book on OTA channels or direct bookings, um, and in some of those markets there are not that many brands, because the hoteliers know that you don't need to have a brand to be successful. So in that instance, I would think about what is best. Is it a soft brand better option or an independent better option? The decision basically boils down to what the building presents as an opportunity. Can you make this building, with renovations, repositioning, rebranding, a really unique experience that people would really want to stay and experience that, their stay with us? Create some local, unique characteristic, unique design, right? Unique experiences. Um, so if that answer is yes, then I would lean more towards independent. But if it feels like, well, I have some limitations for the building, maybe there are some other soft brands or brands in the market that I need to compete better. To overcome some of those obstacles, I would then look at soft brand, where I get a little more support, and the brand's network that will allow me to be more successful.
Got it. So making sure that you really do your research and just making sure that the hotel, based on the area and market research that you've done, is getting the best use of its, I guess,
Yep,
potential.
exactly.
Okay, so what do the typical fees, I guess, look like for a soft brand versus like a fully flagged one? Because it seems like maybe getting into hotels as a newer investor, maybe it might be a lot more better to have support from like a flagged hotel versus an independent hotel where there's a lot more things that you have pretty much have to do on your
Yeah.
own.
So fully branded hotels, their fees vary anywhere from 10 to 15, 16, 17% of your top line revenue, which is pretty substantial,
Hmm.
right? Um, but in return, they give you a lot of support. You can um, count on certain amount of business they are going to provide. There are no guarantees, but because you're associated with a large brand, and then people know what the brands are, people know what to expect when you stay at specific hotel. So then you end up paying higher fees for that. Soft brands can vary from 4 to 5% to as high as 8 to 9%. So much more affordable, lower support, lower resources, but it's a good mix, I would say, where it gives you more freedom than a fully branded hotel, but at the same time, it gives you support and guidelines, so that you know how to operate your property and make it successful.
Got it. Is it pretty easy to say you buy an independent hotel to now make that one a flagged hotel or vice versa, where it's a flagged hotel now you want to? I imagine once there's a a 10-year contract or something like that, once that expires, then you can go to an independent. Is a process going back and forth between either pretty straightforward?
It is straightforward if you are at an exit window, right? So if you sign a 10-year agreement with a brand and you want to exit before 10 years are up, then there will be liquidated damages. So they want to collect the remaining of the term. A lot of times you can negotiate exit windows in between the terms. So if you have a 10-year term, you can say, I want exit window at 5 years without penalty. So at 5 years, you can basically notify them and go with a different brand or become independent. Once that is possible, and even liquidated damage, sometimes, again, every property is unique, every market is unique, every opportunity is unique. So if sometimes liquidated damage still makes sense, because you might see a much bigger upside by doing something different with the building, by
Hmm.
disassociating from a brand and becoming independent. But generally, the transition would mean pretty much same thing. You have to basically do, I'm pretty sure, at some kind of renovation and repositioning. Either you go with a different brand or you go independent. Um, and on the flip side, if you are independent property, you want to put a brand, then basically they'll give you all the standards, what they want you to do in terms of property improvement plan that would meet their brand requirements. Just like I said before, they will tell you what kind of furniture to buy. They'll tell you where to buy it from, right? What computer system to buy to run your hotel. What kind of breakfast they want you to offer. So they give you the whole playbook, and then you basically take that and you implement all those changes. Once your property is improved and all the renovations are done, then they'll basically put you on their distribution channels, and then you are now part of their brand. So that
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
renovations could cost a lot of money. Once again, um, there is nothing wrong in doing either, right? It basically is going to end up depending on why we are doing whatever we are doing. Are we disassociating from the brand or going independent? Where the opportunity lies, basically.
Got it. So if you were to start all over again, knowing what you know now, is there one that you pursue more than the other as your first one?
That's a good question. So coincidentally, I started in an independent property years ago when I started working in a hotel. Then my next job as a general manager was at a branded hotel. And then full circle back, then we got back into independence and soft brands. If I was to get into hotels without having any experience, um, I would lean towards maybe soft brand or full brand, at least for the first property. Once again, it depends on the property location, right? It's not a simple answer, but if the property location justifies having some kind of support, a little more peace of mind, having a brand that can guide you, I would probably do that. Once I learn how to run hotels successfully, understand the whole process of finding hotel to buying hotels to getting financing to renovation, repositioning, rebranding, operations. Once I have all that experience, then my first preference would be independent. Second would be soft brand, and the third would be full brand.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, for me, I don't have any hotels yet. I really want to get into this space, but I know that it's just like any other project. I think I'd much rather take less of a cut, be able to have support, whether that be in a hotel or like a flip or anything like that. If I have someone who has
Yeah.
experience, to me, that peace of mind and just getting that experience, the reps in, is much more valuable than maybe getting a bigger profit and making potentially way more mistakes that can be very costly, as you know, because hotels are much more expensive than the single family residential
Yeah.
stuff.
There is one more option that people should think about. Um, if they don't have hotel experience and they want to get into hotels, there is nothing wrong in finding somebody who has done it, become a partner, or bring them on as a partner so they can guide you because they have done it, they have the experience, and go into independent route. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is first matching. First, I think very first thing is the market. You have to identify the market first. Either it's a geographical location based on from where you are located versus what the market opportunities are, right? Is there a growth in the market? What's happening in the market? Are there more hotels coming, more attractions coming, more people are starting to visit that area, whatever that may be, right? Once you identify the market, then you have to see, okay, if this is the property I'm looking at, the best use for the property is independent, then there's nothing wrong in finding somebody who has done it before, bring them on as a partner, use their guidance and knowledge and experience instead of going with the brand, right? Because if you have somebody who can guide you, you can do it, right? As long as you're willing to put in the time and effort. Nothing's easy, right? There are, so hard work is required, and there's a lot of learning, right? Nowadays there are a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos, right? There's so much content out there, so you can learn a lot of things by yourself, but then have somebody by your side who can hold your hand and guide you, coach you, mentor you, maybe. So that's another option
Yeah,
people should explore.
I think that's great advice. Always find a mentor or someone else who's doing it, just like you said. So obviously, you're in a place now where you're able to mentor other people. So what are some characteristics that you really look out for or that shine and people say that have like no experience or anything like that that you really look for in order to be able to partner with them? Are there any specific traits or things that they do that make you be like, man, I really want to work with this person?
Yeah, I don't have a list that I have thought through and prepared, but generally speaking, I would prefer them to have at least some STR slash Airbnb experience. Ideally multiple, because then they have a better understanding of what it entails, right? Because they have ran or
Hmm.
managed multiple houses or Airbnb, so they understand a little bit about dynamic pricing. They understand what it takes to create a good guest experience. They have more understanding of design, cleanliness, how to stage, right, how to present the property. There's a lot more to it in the hotels, but at least they come with that knowledge, so they're not completely new to the industry, right? That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Second, um, I have to see how serious they are in variety of ways. Um, I have a couple of people I'm mentoring where they have actually quit their job. This is their main thing. They are literally spending every single day looking for hotels to buy. So that
Mm.
gives me a confidence that they are committed. They are not like, well, yeah, I have a full time job. I want to do this, but I can spend maybe a few hours a week. That is not. There's nothing wrong with that, but that shows me that they are not fully committed, right? Um,
Hmm.
and next thing would be their ability in terms of financing. Do they have enough funds? Do they have ability to raise? Do they have network of people that they can reach out and raise funds? Right? Um, do they also have any kind of financial background, even through different field, different industry? Right? Um, I think those are the three most important things I would consider when I would look at somebody who wants me to mentor them.
Yeah, well, that's gold. Hold on, let me call my job. Let me tell them I'm gonna quit really quick. Hold up. I'm just kidding. No, that's gold, and I think everyone can really benefit from that. I think just giving unconditionally, also as a new person, just always trying to bring value to any situation, whatever that may be. I think is a really good thing to do, also for
Yeah.
people. So I really want to get into your story because I've heard you on a few other podcasts. You have a really incredible story. So, what made you fall on hospitality in the first place?
Um, it was completely unintentional. So I had come from India in '97, and my initial thought was to continue electrical engineering here. So get a 4 year college, get a degree, get a job. But I wanted to get into business, and I was not very patient in those early days. And I also realized that it would take probably, I don't know, 8 years before I can start some kind of business. So I thought, what else can I do? And I ended up working at a hotel in Anaheim, California, independent property. Um, and once again, I had just come here from India about a month ago, so I was really new to this whole world, and now a whole new business. Right?
How old were you at the time when that
I
when
was
that was?
23.
Okay, 23, brand new in
Yeah.
Anaheim.
So anyway, I started working, and I really enjoyed the business. I enjoyed the interactions with the guests. It felt simple to understand the basic principles of the business. Right? It's not technical. It's not like computer science. Like you had to learn code. This is a business, and I had a business when I was in India. My dad was in a business, so I had a little bit of understanding of how the business should run. Right. So anyway, I liked a lot of different aspects of this industry, and I decided to basically stay in. I actually went and got a degree in hotel management while I was working there. Um, and then I got married and realized I need to make more money, because before I was just by myself. I had two bags of clothes. I was staying in one of the hotel rooms for 5 days a week. So you don't need much, right? You're working all the time. I have no place to go. Not really any expenses, so everything was fine. But now, I need a house or apartment and all the furniture and everything else you need to build life. So then I started looking for a job, and I found a job at a Days Inn in Flagstaff as a general manager. So my wife and I decided to basically leave Anaheim, California, and move to Flagstaff. So we ended up there. In Flagstaff, I met my business partner about a year after I moved there, and then they ended up buying a hotel in Flagstaff, and I was able to invest in that hotel with them. That was my first investment in the hotel, um,
Wow.
and that's how basically I got into hotel, and that's how I invested in my first hotel deal.
Okay. Well, it seems like you had a very incredible experience because it seems like you went all in. You got a degree in hotel management, then you took everything you had, went to Flagstaff, and then you stayed there for a long time. So, was there a specific memory that you remember early on that really just like really sparked that passion or desire to want to pursue this? Because I think it's really hard to just imagine committing so much to this one route. And so I don't know if there's one particular experience or thing that you remember that just really was like, wow, I really want to do this.
I don't think there was a specific incident, but I continue to like the business. Right, the best thing I liked about this business is um, everything we do is to create good experiences for our guests. Right, um, and it's really rewarding. Like when I in the for so many years in the beginning, I was in the front. Like I was at the front desk. I was a GM. I was interacting with guests all the time. I was interacting with the staff, right? Hiring, training, retaining, and then handling guest complaints or creating good experiences or making improvements at the hotel, right? So everything we do results into basically creating good guest experiences. And more importantly than that, when you go out of your way and when the guest walks up to you and thanks you for doing what you did and the impact it made on their visit or a trip or their family or building some kind of memory or whatever that is, when that happens in that moment, the feeling you get is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's one of the most important aspects of why I wanted to continue doing this. And second, it's a business, right? So I get to do this where I make people happy, right? And I'm running slash owning a business and generating income. So I felt like this is the best of both worlds. And for that reason, I kind of continue to learn and thrive into this business.
Yeah, that's something that I'm really leaning into also. So my background's in nursing, and so naturally I have that hospitality background. And now I have my first Airbnb with my mom, and just like seeing the parallels between the two, and just like providing the best experiences for people is something that I really
Yeah.
love. And so I really resonate with what you're saying. Um, so you go first get that hotel in Flagstaff. What was that period like going from working as a GM and all that stuff to now owning a hotel and being an investor? Because I think there's a lot that goes into that. And so what was that experience like for you? And when did that mindset change from like, I really want to start to get into this?
Yeah. So that was a pretty big shift in paradigm, I would say, when I invested in the first hotel in Flagstaff. So it's kind of a backward story. Mostly people have a job and then they invest and run the business. So for me, what happened was my business partner was going to run the hotel. So I wasn't going to invest and run it. I was going to invest and I was going to help them with operations while I had my job, right? Until we find a next deal, right? And we didn't know. I didn't know at that point, like, is there going to be a next deal or not? This is all the money I have. I already put it in here and basically see what happens, right? But once I invested money in that first property, um, I knew the market, I knew the operations, so I was supporting the operations. Um, but one thing that happened is the way I think about hotel, the operations, everything that happens completely changed because I'm no longer thinking as a general manager. I'm thinking as an owner, right?
Mm.
Um, Maybe as a general manager, unhappy guests might slip through, and you don't know, right? And you maybe missed an opportunity to fix it. But as an owner, you realize every unhappy guest could mean a lot of loss of revenue, right? Nowadays, more than ever before, because people can post reviews on all different channels on social media. So word of mouth can spread much faster than days before social media, right? Or
Hmm.
technology. So creating happy guests and addressing guest issues becomes really, really important. But I realized that that's one aspect, that we have to make sure the guests are happy and what the impact of that could be on the business. And then every decision you make about hiring people or doing any improvements or buying anything, um, makes you think differently, because we now have to think, what is the ROI on this thing that we want to buy for the rooms or a property, whatever that may be. Do we really need it? How is it going to enhance the guest experience, so on and so forth, right? So it allowed me to think differently. And then that property was, of course, successful. And then we started looking for more hotels. But yeah, that change of mindset was very eye opening for me during the first.
Hmm. One thing I really love about your story is that you learned the operations backwards and forwards before ever getting to the investing side. I think right now on social media, there's all this hype about hotels and all that stuff. And like the acquisition seems hard, but it's like the operation side is something that I don't think is taught about or talked about enough. And so that's something that really scares me. So, what are maybe some things that you see newer hotel owners overlook or struggle with as far as operations wise or acquisitions wise in the beginning?
That is a really good question, and this is one of the thing that kind of scares me when people I talk to, they are trying to get into hotels from either STRs, Airbnbs, or even long-term rentals, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I want people to think about is, this is not an expansion from whatever, two or three Airbnbs to 20, 30, 40 room hotel. It is a full-fledged business. It requires strategic approach. You have to run it as a business, right? It's not an Airbnb anymore. You don't have one unit
Mm-hmm.
or multiple units located in different places. This is, I guess, what you call is economy of scale. You have a 30 room hotel, everything is in one place. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of processes in place, right? um, so I want them to take that seriously, as to, it's not a side hustle, right? Treat it like a business. You need to have
Mm-hmm.
structure. Leadership becomes important, because now you're leading a team of employees, or right, or your staff. You have to have financial discipline to make sure you have raised enough money. You're watching the numbers. You're putting money aside for any, you know, expenses or renovations that might be coming up. Right? You have to learn to have a business plan before you buy a property, so that you show that you are qualified when you are talking to the banks, right? They want to see what your business plan is. You also have to find a way to understand how to read profit and loss statements, what cash flow is, what RevPAR is. So once again, I want people to take it very seriously, instead of saying, "Well, yeah, I was able to find a property, I was able to raise money," but the real work becomes once you close on the property and when you take over.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I agree. Do you self manage all of them? Do you have like GMs in place for all of them? Do you use a third party management? What does your management system typically look like?
Yeah, so we self-manage all of our properties. Every property has its own general manager, and then I oversee the operations of all the hotels.
Got it. Okay. In an industry where there's such high turnover, how do you ensure that, or how do you have staff stay, and how from that staff, how do you ensure that amazing experiences continue to be delivered to, I mean, I guess all the staff and guests?
I think this is one of the most difficult things we are doing, and we are continuing to face. But we are doing what we can, and we are trying to find, hire, and retain staff we have. We like to make sure that our staff knows who we are, what our vision is, and what kind of experience we are trying to create for our guests. Um, give them clear expectations, give them guidelines, and allow them the authority to do what it takes to either fix something that might have gone wrong or create better experiences. Um, I like to give them freedom to do whatever it takes to make the guests happy. we can, if they made a mistake in doing that, we can always address it later on. But if the guest is left the property, then you have missed that opportunity to fix that problem, right? So that's one thing.
Hmm.
And I think the other thing we do is we treat our staff with respect. We try to offer them opportunity to grow. Thankfully, we have multiple properties, so there is always something our team members can do to grow into a bigger, better position. Um, in terms of our leadership team, general managers, I try my best to get them involved in some of the decision making. If you're doing renovations or if I want to do some improvement, I want them to give me their feedback because they are the boots on the ground. They are the one talking to the guests on a day to day basis. I am not. So their feedback is very important to me. A lot of times they have better ideas than I do, right?
Hmm.
Same thing applies to any changes we are trying to make in terms of operations, any processes, policies we want to change. Because if I just tell them what I want to change without them knowing or understanding what we are doing, then they don't fully buy into it. But if they're part of the decision making, part of the thinking, then it's their decision, right? Then I don't have to worry about,
Hmm.
oh, will they really follow through? They will because this is their idea, right? So I definitely want to make sure that I'm getting them involved in um, as many decisions that we have to make in terms of either operational changes, property improvements, staff related issues, whatever that may be. And that has worked for us over the years. And while we struggle sometimes with finding and retaining staff, we have been fortunate to have some of the team members that have been with us for a long time, and hopefully they'll stay with us for a lot longer.
Got it. So making sure that you empower people and don't
Yep.
micromanage them and just let them really shine at the job that they're
Yeah.
doing.
Exactly.
Okay. I love it. What has been in some of the biggest challenges you faced, I guess, scaling up? I don't know how long. When did you buy your first property, and then how long did it take to? I know that you've now accelerated and acquired many in these past couple of years, but what was it like early on in the beginning as far as like challenges you faced scaling?
Um, Scaling was one of that was the money, as I didn't have funds of my own. Um, so the second property we purchased in Tucson, Arizona, I basically maxed out all my credit cards. Thankfully, I was getting those 0% APR offers, and we took all of them and took every dollar we could get. Um, so that was one challenge. And then I think that challenge continued into the next property because for so many years it felt like I never have enough money, right? Like I'm finding the deals, I am underwriting the deals, I'm doing the research, right? So I know exactly what the opportunity is. I just don't have the money. Like I didn't have people I can call and say, hey, can I borrow X, Y, 50,000, whatever that, some money so I can put more money down and have higher ownership. So that was one challenge.
Hmm.
Second thing, I think for Tucson property, I really focused on mastering the operations. I worked really hard on creating operating processes that can be easily duplicated when we buy third, fourth, and fifth properties, right? So that was my main focus. But when the third property happened after 10 years, I had been a GM now for probably 15 years, right? Where I am in charge of this property and all the decisions are made by me. Now we have a property 3.5, 4 hours ago that I am not running. Somebody else that we hire is running. So it was something I had to accept the change in terms of I am not the one doing things. So I'm going to have to let go of some things, accept some imperfections, um, set clear expectations, and let them run with it as long as the outcome is what we all want collectively. How they get there is not important because I have my way of doing certain things. And, if I'm sitting down with you and training you on certain things, I had to take a step back and say, well, this is how I do it. But if they do it differently but come to the same outcome, it's okay. I think that was one of it took me a while to kind of accept the fact that I'm not making all the decisions, I'm not there, and I'm not doing everything, and let somebody else take control of a multi-million dollar asset that we have invested money in, our investors have invested money in, and we have to be very careful what happens and how we manage the property.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't even imagine after doing that for 15 years. It's sure. I'm sure it's hard to just let go and just let them other people take
Mhm.
control. But I'm sure now with your time, you're able to focus on higher producing income tasks, like maybe doing more acquisition stuff, more capital raising, all this stuff. But one thing I really love about your story in particular is that you waited 10 years before going from number two to number three, or number three to number four, whatever that may be. Because I think right now, myself included, everyone's just so focused on the acquisition side of things and just getting how many deals you can get done. But for you, this was the complete opposite. Like, you really wanted to master your craft, really learn the operations of side of things before ever getting into that scale of things. And so I think that's really humbling for me to just know that patience is everything, and this is just like a long-term thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I am very thankful. One, to come from operational background to start with, and second, I took that time for whatever 10 years to one learn the operations more, perfect it, and create SOPs. But another thing that happened during those 10 years is I also focus on learning, in a sense, art of deal making, right? How to, because I'm it's still a GM, right? How do I expose myself to looking at properties, going to see the properties, underwriting, financing, negotiations, repositioning? How do I learn all those things? I'm too busy running a property, right? I have to find a way
Mm-hmm.
to expose myself or put myself in those situations where I am around people that are owners. And being part of Best Western, where we go to different meetings and stuff, allowed me access to a lot of other hoteliers. So I made a lot of friends. I spent a lot of time with them, learning, understanding what they do, how they do deals, um, and then I gain trust and respect of my business partners, where they started treating me as their partner instead of just a GM. And then we together started looking for properties, together started underwriting them or negotiating them, starting to talk to the banks, right? Things like that. So, yeah, it took a long time. It doesn't have to be 10 years for anybody, but that's just how things worked out for me. And I'm very thankful for that. But um, I like to walk before I run. You know what I mean? So I want to learn at least 80% of what I'm supposed to do before I pull the trigger. So in that sense, I was lucky that I had the time and ability to learn all the different aspects of hospitality industry.
Yeah, I think that's great because in real estate, I think everyone always just preaches action, action, action. But I think it's really important to take a step back sometimes and just be like, no, this is a full fledged business. I just need to really learn things before I actually take action. Take take yeah, just take good action, and have the backing to do it.
Yeah.
But so as far as the financing goes, so it seems like for the very first two, maybe you saved up all your money, and then put it into that first one, and then you saved up a while for the second one. So what does your financing now look like for all the other ones you do? The first couple, did you do syndications where there's just strictly you or maybe a few partners, and now you're doing syndications? How has your financing changed, and been helpful to scaling?
Yeah. So most of our deals are joint ventures where we have, family, friends, investors that have been investing with us since that very first deal in Flagstaff. Of course, that group has grown now to more investors. Because first deal was 4 people, and then the next deal was 5 people, and then further on, more people reach out. As they hear, how property is successful, we are growing. So now we have a pretty decent pool of investors that we can work with, and we have built a really good reputation with them. Um, so raising money is not an issue, and then I'm thankful that I have been in the industry for long enough, so I have um, savings. I
Track
can,
record.
yeah, and then I can also deploy some of the funds of my own, because biggest thing for me is if I'm going to you and say, hey, we are buying this property, you want to invest $100,000, I think your first question will be, what are you investing? So if I'm not investing anything,
Mm-hmm.
I think my investor would not feel comfortable, right? So we have always done that. In every deal, we invest our own money. Um, and then, of course, track record speaks for itself. So yeah, raising money up to a certain level is not an issue for us. we are more focused on finding the right deals, right, than the price, because sometimes you can raise the money, but you get into a wrong deal, then you are taking a pretty substantial step back, right? So we want to avoid those
Hmm.
mistakes.
Yeah, definitely making the deal count on the buying side is where you find the good
Yeah.
deals.
So in
Seems
those
like
10 years when
okay.
we didn't buy any properties, it didn't mean we were not looking. We were looking for properties. We just didn't find the one we wanted. The numbers didn't make sense to what we were looking for, right? And during that time, 2008, 9, 10 happened. So there was a recession, whatever that may be, right? There are ups and downs. Um, but at least for the last 5 years of those 10 years, we were looking. We just couldn't find something based on our buy box. So we didn't buy anything that didn't make sense to us. We just kept saying no and just keep moving on to the next property, next property, next property. And finally, we found one in Sedona. And, a lot of times you sit back and you say, like, man, that property we looked at here was at this price. Now it's sold for this price. We should have bought it. We missed an opportunity. That's one way to think. But at the same time, if I had done any other deals, I may not have ended up in Sedona, because I may not have had funds after doing that one deal, right, to be able to do another deal in Sedona. So, everything happens for a reason, and I'm just thankful for how things have panned out in my journey.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in everything
Yeah,
happens for a reason. And just going back
yeah,
to your patience and how important it is to just be okay with passing
yeah,
on deals, because I think as a new investor, all we want to do is get that first one
yeah,
done. And I think there can be a lot of fatigue when underwriting or looking at many different deals where you're just like, you know what, fuck it. For this
yeah.
first one, it doesn't really make too much sense, but I just want to get the action. And so I think it's good to hear that it's okay to just take X amount of time, whether that be a year or 10 years or whatever. Because now when that time comes after 10 years, now look at you, you're like accelerating and acquiring multiple properties in a year or several over a couple of years. And
Yeah.
so anyone who's listening, just be okay being patient. I think that's just what it ultimately comes down to, because this is ultimately a long-term game, real estate.
Well, especially in the beginning, you have to find every reason to not buy a property. If you cannot find a reason, guess what? That is the deal you should do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this is not a house you're buying for $300,000 to $500,000. You're buying a multi-million-dollar asset. You may have all your savings on the line. You may have other people's, your investors' money on the line. You have to do all your due diligence, and be a good steward of yours and your investors' investment. So, yeah, sometimes people get impatient because they've been working hard, they've been looking at deals and nothing's happening, and I understand that. I've been through that myself. But you always have to want to keep a bigger picture in mind and make sure you are taking the right steps, especially in the beginning. If you have 3 or 4 hotels already under ownership and the next deal somewhat goes wrong, you can sustain it because the existing properties you own can support it. But the first 1, 2, or 3 deals fail, that is going to basically set you back all the way to the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure you try your best to avoid any possible mistakes. And once again, associate yourself with people that have done it before. You want to find somebody who can coach you, mentor you, maybe find them and ask them to see if they want to be your partner, right? What it does, it reduces your risk because they come with the experience. They come with their own knowledge and gut feeling as to what are the right deals. So yeah, that's what I would definitely keep in mind.
I love it. So what's your long-term vision for you and your portfolio? I know right now, I think you have like 12 or 13.
We have 10 right now.
Oh, okay, 10 right now. So do you
Yeah.
plan to still stay on acquisition mode for the next couple of years? Do you want to just like really hone in and get all the operations optimized for the 10? Do you want to do more flag, more boutique? Do you want to do unique experiences? What's your vision? Maybe 5, 10 years. I know this is a big jump, but maybe 5 years.
Um, so we are always looking for properties, right? It's not, you can find deals in any type of economy, but we're always looking for deals. At the same time, I have focused on our current assets to make sure they are well maintained, and we continue to improve them, right? So that we can continue to create better experiences, but also take the revenue to the next level, right? Because in commercial real estate, your valuation is dependent on your NOI. So the more you bring to the bottom line, higher the valuation, right?
Hmm.
So I have a couple of properties in my portfolio right now that I am working on. Not a full reno or repositioning, but I think they are ripe for adding certain amenities and take them to the next level. So that's what I'm working on right now. But while we are doing that, we're always looking for more properties. I am starting to work more with um, some of our mastermind group members or people that reach out to me where they need guidance, mentorship, coaching. So I'm starting to allocate some time towards doing that. Um, but yeah, all three continue to um, stabilize and improve our property performances. Keep looking for properties, and start doing or continue doing mentorship to people. Um,
What's your buy box? Is it all pretty much in Sedona or Arizona? Do you have a specific like hotel count or room count, all that stuff? Like, what's your buy box?
yeah, so buy box wise, I don't have any strict guidelines in terms of I only want to do independents or soft brands or fully branded properties. There's opportunity in all three of them, right? It all depends on what's the deal in front of you right now, right?
Mm.
You can make more money buying and repositioning a branded property sometimes versus buying independent property and vice versa. It all depends on individual deal and what the deal presents. Like, how do you reposition either by operations or renovations or rebrand, whatever that option may be. So I'm open to all three options. My preference would be independent, then soft brand, and then full brand, but I'm not opposed to any of those three options. Um, the other question you asked me was by yeah, size. I think size is important to me. I don't like property with a lot of rooms. I want to stay around 100 or below, and I also don't like hotels with food and beverage, which means restaurant and bar. I want limited service property where there is no F&B involved.
Why is that? Is there just like less profit margins, or what's your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so the Tucson property we owned for 17 years, that was a full service property. We had a full service restaurant and bar at the hotel. The hotel was 79 rooms, and I ended up running the restaurant and bar along with the hotel for at least 10 years of 17 year of ownership. And it is a very difficult business. It is difficult to make it profitable, um, because whatever, even 70 to 150 room property doesn't have enough guests, maybe not even have enough meeting space to have um, ability to host large conventions or meetings where it is going to support your F&B operation and make it profitable, right? And it's just a lot of moving parts. For that reason, I'm not a big fan of full service hotels.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, so we're nearing the end of the podcast. I always just like ask some rapid fire questions. So, do you have a favorite hotel that you own, and what makes it special in particular?
My favorite hotel in my portfolio is the Southwest Inn at Sedona. Um, the reason behind that is when we did renovations a few years ago, I was lucky to find somebody locally who designed with me and hand built all the furniture. So it's
Wow.
extremely unique. Like, there is no property in the world that will have the guest room furniture like I have, the headboard, the nightstands, things like that. It Property itself has a very unique southwestern feel and design to it. So it worked out really, really well, and that property continues to perform very strongly amongst my entire portfolio. That is one of the properties where I am looking at adding more amenities and take it to the next level in terms of the property performance. So that would be my favorite property out of all.
Okay. And outside of your portfolio, what's one hotel, doesn't have to be a chain, independent, whatever, that you've been to that just really stands out to you as far as just like service, experience, all that stuff that you just like really have an amazing 5-star experience that you remember or that you love?
So one time we went to a Best Western brand convention. I think it was in Texas somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but it was a Gaylord Resort, which is like a city in itself. Like it has everything. Like you have multiple restaurants, bars, shops. You have a huge convention and meeting space. It's mind-boggling to me. How do you run a place like that? Honestly, and of course, very well maintained, very efficiently run. We had a great experience. So I think that's what just comes to my mind when I think about outside my portfolio. What kind of stood out in my previous travels? It's just ability to one build and operate. I don't know how they do it, but it's a pretty huge undertaking to run a place like that.
Okay, I'll have to check out both. And lastly, any last piece of advice that you want to leave any of the listeners, whether they're just getting started, looking to get into hotels, maybe they have some experience looking to scale, or just anything in general? Do you have any last words of wisdom?
Um, I think educate yourself is number one. Do whatever it takes. Join mastermind groups. Listen to podcasts, YouTube videos. Find somebody who's doing it now. So educate yourself is one. Um, while we talk about taking action, but make sure to spend enough time in analyzing the deal, finding the right market, right? If you find the right market, if you find the right deal, as they say, you'll find the money. But once you find the money, you close on the deal, what happens next, right? So that's why going back to education and maybe finding somebody who can partner with you, who can maybe even give you coaching, mentorship, so that you are set up for success and help that person can help you prevent making any mistakes.
Hmm. Love it. Yeah. Protect other people's money at all costs,
Yeah,
because once you have your own money, you can be a little bit more risky, but once you actually start raising money, it's a whole nother thing, and it can be someone's
yes,
life savings. So just really,
yeah,
really do everything that you can to protect it.
yeah.
Okay. Neil, it's been such a pleasure. I know everyone will gain a ton of knowledge from this one. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do so?
They can find me on Instagram at Nilang007. It's NILANG 007. Yep,
007.
yep. Um, or on LinkedIn, just look up Neil Shah or Intech Management, and yeah, reach out to me for anything I can help you with.
Sounds good. Well, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. As always, keep growing, keep taking action, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.